Evening, everybody. I just saw the horror film, the sci-fi horror film Megan. It's one where they spell the E in the name Meg, Megan Megan, but with an three for the E. And just not give a request of a friend, just give my little review. So it was enjoyable. I don't know if I'd say I like it. It was enjoyable. It was a well-made movie. It was definitely very creative, definitely innovative. The horror genre gets a lot of flack from some people, whether you like or dislike horror. A lot of people don't like consider some of the horror genre to be pretty repetitive, really trite, cliche, uninspired. Megan was not trite, cliche, uninspired. It was very original, very inventive, very creative, also very bewildering and bizarre. You watch it and you have to wonder, okay, what exactly inspired them to make this? You just think, what was the genesis? Like, what group of people threw this idea together? If you haven't seen any of the ads for it or read any professional reviews, it's about a lady who works for a company that makes toys for kids, who's able to invent basically a life-size android that that the company intends to market as a robotic friend for kids, I guess. And the android is she partly uses to help care for her niece who she's received custody of after her sister and brother-in-law die. And the android who is named Megan, becomes violently possessive toward the girl and lashes out against people who she sees as trying to harm the girl. And I guess if I'm thinking about cons, I'm thinking about downsides of it. Well, uh, first a pro. So the director of the original Friday the 13th, which is not a movie I'm fond of, has said that one of his inspirations, and this is a spoiler. If you haven't seen Friday the 13th, this is a spoiler. Although, I do not recommend that you see it. But if you are choosing to see, skip ahead of a few seconds. The director of the original Friday the 13th, where Jason is not the killer, it's Jason's mother, had said that one of his inspirations was the idea that Jason's mother is seeking vengeance for what happened to her son. He wanted to take one of those pure and wholesome things on earth, a mother's love for a kid, and turn that into something evil. Specifically, if you took something that powerful and that strong, but you used it for something that wasn't pure. And he was actually really annoyed that they made Jason the villain in the sequels. And I got some senses of that from the way that, just the possessive care for the niece who the android's bonding with and is supposed to protect or whatever. And then, now for something that I guess is one of its cons, the way that some people react with a very few exceptions, some people react. This isn't in a world where technology like this is something is something commonplace. This is supposed to be, it's one of those movies where the world should be assumed to be basically identical to the real world, except for these people's existence in it when they're fictional in the real world. And the doll, the toy, whatever you want to call it, most people seem so casual or blasé about a doll being able to have spontaneous conversations like that with people. And I think they kind of rush to the explanation of how the doll becomes so malevolent. And the reason that's worth noting, again, I'm going to quote Roger Ebert's review of a movie called The Good Son that had Elijah Wood and Macaulay Culkin in it. I might mispronounce Culkin's first name. Ebert said in that review, which is about a kid who is capable of committing murder, he said, "This is a very evil little boy, but what rings false is that Culkin's character is not really a little boy. His speech is much too sophisticated and ironic for that, as are his reasoning and cleverness. He might seem more frightening if he committed these murders and did seem to be young and naive in the middle of all of it." And that's something I kind of thought of with the way that the android so quickly not just becomes manipulative and possessive in ways that indicate human nature, but also gains a grasp of, like I said, sophisticated, ironic language that an adult human might speak. And so, and just how that happens all of a sudden. I wonder if there might have been some scenes that were cut out by the editors that might have established that somewhat. And so that did seem, but given how bewildering the whole movie was in general, I don't know if it detracts from it that much. And then there's one scene, maybe about a third of the way through, that involves a kid who picks on the girl who the android is supposed to be protecting, that I kind of question the ethics of having a kid actor acting this. I don't know if it's hugely unethical, but I don't want to explain it. It's the scene's very clearly supposed to be reminding us something. Like, we watch and it's clear what they want us to be reminded of. And I don't want to say exactly what it is, because that might be a trigger for some of the people who might have experienced it in real life. But I suppose if you want, you can message me and I'll explain. But anyway, I did kind of question the ethics of that, specifically of having kid actors act out, well, a kid actor, I guess, act out a scene like that. That's supposed to be reminiscent of, what I'm referring to. But all in all, I'd say it's worth a watch. I'd say Megan is worth a watch. It might be, though. I guess here's another con. It's you'd think it might be thought provoking, whether about our relationships, technology, or AI or whatever. But things happen so quickly, and everything comes so out of left field that you want it to be thought. I mean, I guess it's interesting, it's engaging during the plot, but in terms of connecting what happens in this world to our real world, it's not that thought-provoking. Like, if you see the Terminator for me was thought-provoking. I got a message when I watched the Terminator. I'm not sure. I think some people call the Terminator anti-war, and I didn't see it as anti-war so much as I saw it as anti-genocide. Because in just the heartless way that the Terminator hunts down humans, I don't know if that was intended or not, but that's what I felt. Not about it, not necessarily anti-war, but anti-genocide. And I don't know if there's anything comparable for Megan. It's so hard to compare any of this to the real world, if you get what I'm saying. But I still think it's worth a watch. It's worth a watch, but it's good. It definitely frightened me. I jumped in my seat a couple times, just something I don't even usually do at horror movies. And definitely it kept my attention the whole way. So Megan, I'd say, is worth a with everything it is, it's worth a watch. Have a wonderful day, everybody.